Yes, welcome to Chain Up the Chick. This is episode, and we we are going to be chatting about some real serious stuff today because, as you well know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. But there are people out there who believe this pandemic doesn't exist. Can you believe that? Yes, we're talking about English people and how stupid that. I'm joking. We're talking about conspiracy theories. And Phil, your face is, well, we're just going to stay as we are. I'm the only one who's going to be moving around today. For some reason, your face has just gone dead still.
Dead still. I think that's your device that is...
Wicked. Right, we'll work with that. Anyway, we're talking about conspiracy theories. This is Phil's favourite subject. So, Phil's, take us away.
Take us away. Well, I mean, I guess I picked the subject because I felt that to kind of stick to the of what we've been previously talking about, I guess it's more related to how I find religious sort of systems seem to create a way of thinking that kind of promotes conspiracy, beliefs, primarily because you're already adopting an idea that, the reality of what we have in the world and what say a church presents can be, wildly apart. And I guess we're just here to talk about the fact that, how people can go down the road of, that sort of patternized thinking and start to involve themselves in more and more ideas around all levels of conspiracy.
This sounds like a conversation that can be very convoluted and very nuanced with a lot of explanation. We are certainly not those guys. We cannot explain things, but we can get convoluted. We can chat shit all day long. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
So before we start the conversation, I think it's important to, from your perspective, when someone says a conspiracy theory, what does that mean to you? So let's get the subject matter down so we're both on the same page. So what is a conspiracy theory? The explanation of that.
An alternative to, I wouldn't say common belief, but a secular, understanding, I guess. A kind of like a truth behind what's behind the veil kind of thing. So we have our reality of what we say, and then this conspiracy is that actually what we say is actually not true, that there is an alternative reality that is happening and behind the scenes that is manipulating the reality that you live in, essentially.
Right. Okay. So yeah, for my, I went deep on this one, Phils. I went to Mr. Google and I said, what does conspiracy theory mean? And he came back and charged me 10. No, he didn't. It says a conspiracy theory is a belief that some covert. Hang on, that doesn't make English. It's basically a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for an unexplained event, and someone else has said has a sinister background to it. So something that has been influenced by a sinister organization that has been subverted, basically. So even if it was
elaborate on sinister organization.
What's that?
Elaborate on a sinister.
Well, maybe not a sinister organization, but certainly the
motive behind what's being done has a sinister lineage to it. So, for instance, we're probably getting to talking about some conspiracy theories, but one of the latest ones that's been around for like last year or two is the QAnon. And so QAnon believe that there is powerful people in powerful places that are like doing sex trafficking and trafficking people and stealing children, all this kind of stuff. So they talk about like all the powerful people. So like, you know, Bill Gates, Joe Biden, all these different people that are in power, and they believe that they are trafficking people, sex trafficking, doing all these sinister things. But yet there is no tangible evidence to actually prove that. It's just an idea that someone's taken and other people have run with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is with certain conspiracies is that people do find a level of levels of evidence that they believe are tangible, I guess, and that's where, you know, someone has an idea and then they discover some sort of a level of evidence that they believe are tangible enough to go and further pursue that idea, and in the process of pursuing that idea, they develop a full-fledged conspiracy out of it, whether that was his or her intentive or not. But I guess the internet nowadays kind of becomes a snowball effect with certain people. You know, if you're involved in certain forums, I guess.
Yeah, and the big conspiracy, I suppose, at the moment is some people believe COVID is a hoax that has been instituted by the governments of the world to keep everyone under lock and key, so to speak, so they can exert an element of power to take away people's freedoms, which I suppose has some merit to it to some degree. But I've also, if I was going to have a discussion with someone who actually believed that, I think I wouldn't be attacking them for believing it. For one, I'd want to know, okay, why, what makes you believe that that's actually true? Like, is it more just based upon a faceless idea of that you feel like your freedoms are being taken away from you, so you're grabbing hold of a concept, i.e. that COVID is fake, and thus that must be the reason for why my freedoms are being taken away, rather than realizing that it's probably your problem with authority to begin with that is the issue, not COVID in itself.
I just find with individuals like that, I think that you often find the people that do believe it's a hoax are the ones that are also believing in many other types of conspiracies and involving themselves in other various of research to find out a level of why does this happen, or this, that. I guess that's the question we're trying to answer.
Yeah, and I'm just reading here. It's quite interesting. Someone said it's well established that conspiracy theories are more prevalent in times of crisis. Research shows us that the popularity of these ideas is not constant and peaks during cataclysmic events and social upheaval. Like, it goes on to say that, historically conspiracy theories were prominent during previous pandemics, including like the Black Death, the Russian flu, and the 1918 flu pandemic.
Surprise!
Yeah. So it's not even a novel thing. Like, it's been happening throughout the ages of time.
Yeah.
Oh. But what I want to know is, you said at the beginning, now we've kind of established our flow of conversation, so to speak.
Yeah.
You said at the beginning about leading on from our discussion on deconstruction, reconstruction of religion, stuff like that. Do you think around religious circles that conspiracy theories are a real thing? And do you think that religious people are prevalent to believing in conspiracy theories?
Yes and yes.
Why and why?
I think I touched on it at the start, where basically the certain religious beliefs, I can say from what we believed, or I believed, kind of implied that the reality that we live in is not the true reality, that there is a veil behind this reality, and somehow that's where the true reality exists, and you should always live in that.
So you're kind of saying from a perspective of like some Christians who just all they think about and believe in is heaven. That is some concept that is beyond our reality.
Yeah.
So their whole life now is based upon that reality that they believe in.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the fact that it establishes a pattern of thinking in a person. I've nothing wrong. I've no problems against someone believing that there's a heaven or a hell, or an alternative reality that exists beyond the realm of what we live in. But it kind of also indicates that people are more inclined, when they accept those realities, to start to think, what else is there? What other alternatives or other realities exist? And so it creates a sort of a patternized, irrational way of thinking, in order to actually, which kind of like is a hook or a catalyst before they start dwelling into other types of, or starting to believe other types of conspiracy theories around whatever their bias might be. They might, I've heard of people saying, oh, we turn off our Wi-Fi routers in our homes because we're afraid that it's going to, melt our brains. That sort of carry on. And again, it's very misled information based upon some fact, but not the complete fact. And that's where I think we kind of, that's where it kind of gets very skewed, and that's where conspiracy theories kind of like thrive. I think, especially in when a person's mind is already kind of like predisposition towards those sorts of ideas.
Interesting. Well, I actually found a wee little blurb on types of characteristics of people who tend to believe in conspiracy theories, and they say people who are more suspicious, untrusting, eccentric. Hey, that's me. Hey! Needing, they have a need to feel special, with a tendency to regard the world as an inherently dangerous place. Now, that
sounds very familiar, don't you think?
Well, this is the thing. I have to be very careful what I say now, because I don't want. When we talk, I always kind of feel the push and pull to not box everyone into a certain box from a certain religion or from a certain ideology or whatever. It's very easy to just say, well, this was my experience, so this is the equation, here is the answer, and it's all those people.
Yeah.
But I do remember a lot of talk within my circle of influences of people who are in the church and stuff like that, who did need to feel special. So you'd have rhetoric that the church would say, we are the final remnant
Yeah.
of God's chosen people, so to speak. So
We
straight away,
are the
there's
truth bearers.
so there straight away that's the need to feel special, and with a tendency to regard the world as an inherently dangerous place. Well, obviously, if you go with, and I'm picking on the Seventh-day Adventist Church, of course, because that's where my roots lie, and I'm sure there's other denominations and other religions that may have exactly the same kind of idea, but the talk of the town was, people are waiting for Jesus to return, but that won't happen until the world becomes worse and worse and worse and worse, until there's some cataclysmic cosmic entrance that will stop that from all happening. So straight away, alarm bells are ringing in my head when I read this about, the type of people that will believe in conspiracy theories. And you could even go, and again, I have to be very careful how I say this, because I don't want people. See, let me just say right now, I believe in a God. I also believe that a guy, Jesus, existed 2,000 years ago, and he was something quite phenomenal. Now, what that looks like, I can't explain to you anymore. But I just, there's just something within me that's like, yeah, this guy was phenomenal. Was he God? I don't know. I don't care. I'm more worried about what he actually said and what that practically means in my life now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I keep finding myself. I spoke to a friend of mine who's a Christian. He's in the Catholic Church, and we was talking about conspiracy theories. And I said, well, can you look at something like the religion of Christianity and call that a conspiracy theory? Now, I don't think Christianity is sinister. I don't. I didn't say that. But certainly, I think there's things about Christianity that have gone away from, like true, tangible evidence to now believing in things that you can't actually prove or see, i.e., going to heaven when you die or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it got me thinking. And look, I don't have an answer to that. It was more of a probing question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, no. Look, I mean, for me personally, I think I kind of have to boil it back down to what is the true purpose of, say, for the Christian belief? Is it to tell people that the world is a terrible place and you're a sinner and this, that, the other, or is it to actually bring heaven down on earth? Was that the the purpose of what Jesus or anybody that was in his described in his books? What was the true purpose of it? Was that to tell people how terrible they are, or how to establish a kingdom here that actually is worthy, describes what is described? I think every one of his followers, not one has tried to establish that sort of reality on earth while they've been here. They're not been like, oh, everyone's really bad, blah blah. They've treated it as, but nowadays, where we have a church where we have all those messages, but at the same time we have a more of a approach that is kind of like negatively biased, and so we kind of egg that on essentially. And I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about it, but you should like be aware that you have that reality of what you believe, and that how it can like butter you up for all these other ones that quite easily could fit within your reality without you even noticing whether they be true or not.
Yeah. Well, it's like an old theologian, G.K. Chesterton, once said. He said the teachings of Jesus have not been tried and found wanting. He said the teachings of Jesus have been found difficult and left untried.
Mm.
Like, which to me is like, yeah, he's got it spot on. Like, that is spot on. Like, it's because it is like just too difficult for most people. And I'm not saying that I do it perfectly, but I try and I continue to manifest those teachings in my life every day in the best possible way, rather than just going, wow, that's never going to work, so there's no point trying to love my enemy, or do good to those who don't want to do good to me. What's the point? No, I stick to it because it's like, well, man, I can't fathom living a life where I go back to that kind of intrinsic negativity that I used to live in, that would just tear away at my soul week in, week out, where I'd always say to people, oh, they'd be like, how's life, Chris? Oh, I'm eating my own head. Like, oh, it's that bad. I'm eating my own head because I had this reality inside my head that had no positive hope for the future because I had nothing to cling hold of.
Sure.
Anyway, let's change let's change direction slightly because I want to talk about some specific conspiracy theories that you've heard of, and we'll give them a good chainsaw rating out of 10. Whether they're kind of conspiracy theories that are actually going to get people killed, or they're just a fluff of fluff in the dark, so to speak. And we've only got 8 minutes left. I don't want to go any further than 30 minutes because we're losing viewership, man.
Because we blabber on too much.
Yeah. So is there any conspiracy theories that you've heard or kind of done?
I mean, I guess more the recent ones. I mean, not really touching. I don't really want to touch into this whole COVID thing because it's a very recent one. But I think like flat Earth, for instance.
Oh yes.
It's I'm so surprised how that has become so widespread. Like I really kind of baffled me that could be the case in today's age.
Well, my question is, like, what does it matter? Like,
yeah, no.
What does it matter? What does it matter whether it's flat or it's round? Like, who cares, so to speak?
Yeah. Sure, I agree. It doesn't really matter, but again, it's like they were fighting the education system to convert everybody to think that the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little bit concerning, is when you start imposing your ideas around these things into the realities of others. I mean, I guess that's what the current system has done anyway. But yeah. I don't know. It's
because it's kind of trying to find out, like, what's the motivation behind why someone has to prove, like, without a shadow of a doubt, that it's flat rather than round. Like, what is there that's driving their kind of manifesto, so to speak?
I think there was some underlying core beliefs that existed for the individuals that started those conspiracies, which kind of revolved around creation and that sort of thing. So
yeah, well, so you think it's again another religious kind of connotation?
I looked into it, and I had and I saw the questions, and when I initially looked into it, I didn't know how to answer the questions, so I tend to believe I wouldn't say I believe, but I would like give them benefit of the doubt that sure, the questions they're asking, I haven't asked myself, so I can't say for certain that that is the case. But when you do look into those questions and you start understanding, the answers, the alternative answers to what they're describing, is like, okay, well, you guys, and then you look further into who's creating these conspiracy ideas, and from what sources of information are they pulling their information from. It's kind of became clear that there was a Christian sort of take onto it. So and I can see why it became so mainstream, because I think it would have been also quite a lot of Christians that have jumped on board and be like, oh yeah, we're right, look at us.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm kind of baffled by that whole. Maybe it's just the desire to want to be right.
I think it's mostly around that. I think it definitely is mostly around, finding a way to, one up somebody else.
Yeah, and I think kind of religion there gets taken for a ride, rather it goes to places it should never have gone in the first place, and that's why it becomes such an issue.
Yeah,
I suppose it's the same with like Donald Trump was such a he was such a purveyor of conspiracy theories and saying so much weird stuff that because a lot of people in America were fundamentalist Christians, they kind of jumped on the bandwagon.
Yep.
And that's why conspiracy theories have become so ripe just within like the last 4 or 5 years, was because of that man. But look, there's always.
Look how he polarized the country, though. Really.
Well, yeah, and it was always polarized in the first place, but certainly more now.
Yeah.
But like when I grew up in England, even when I lived in America, like conspiracy theories were. I think the last big one was the September 11th in New York, where they kind of said that it was an inside job, and that they did it for insurance and stuff like that. And it's like, man, like
it's a lot of death just to get insurance.
Yeah, and just like people kind of started really and look, they kind of started delving into places that kind of diminished and almost disrespectful to the people that died. But I'm also keenly aware that if something has gone down that's sinister and bad, that needs to be uncovered. Like I'm not the kind of person who's just like, oh, what's going on? What? Just come like blind yourself.
I think for me, in terms of how I treat most conspiracy theories, is that I don't deny the fact that they could be true. I don't deny the fact that they're also false. I try to, try to be an inside person in the conspiracy theory to understand what they're actually trying to say. So, I try to keep an open mind enough to see where, and sometimes some conspiracy theories, hold. You don't really know whether that was true or false. But again, it's like you said, with some conspiracies, does it really matter?
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, it's like
who cares, man?
I'm just more interested in like, what's the motive for you to want to believe that? Like, what's it going to create? But I'll leave us with quite a funny story about a conspiracy theory. You may have heard it yourself, but I'll tell our 6 listeners. Might be down to 5. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the stats. But there was, the Roswell conspiracy.
No, actually, I'm not aware.
So in America, Roswell conspiracy was based around like the whole Area 51 type thing, and in Roswell they reckon there was an alien spacecraft that landed, and people believed 100% that it was an alien, and obviously the authorities came in and took the so-called spacecraft and whatnot and took it off. But anyway, the good thing about conspiracy theories is most of the time, as you go through, as time elapses, you kind of get more and more information, and you suddenly find out what actually happened and realize it wasn't really a conspiracy. But what had happened, this was late 40s, early 50s, yeah, just after the Second World War, and obviously the Cold War had started between Russia, USA, and all the other people, and the Americans were doing some weather testing. So they were sending up these weather balloons, but the problem was that the weather balloons didn't have any way of being controlled. So this was like new technology at the time. They were going all over the country, and I can't remember exactly why they did it, but it was a way to figure out if they were going to be attacked. I don't know. It was I don't know the full details of why, but it was something to do with the Cold War. Anyway, what happened was that the military suddenly realized that people were talking about this Roswell and aliens and stuff like that. So they never actually came forward to say, no, it's okay, it was actually one of our weather balloons, because they wanted that kind of story, that narrative, to take hold, so it put the Soviets off the rabbit trail, so to speak, to find out.
Yeah, I actually remember watching a video about that and how they actually fully, got behind the conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Because it was all to put the Soviets off their weather balloon system and stuff like that. and look, you could be someone who would say something like, yeah, but that's what people in power do. They'll just bluff your bluff, kind of thing, poo-poo you.
Yeah.
And look, that may well be the case, but
we'll never know.
Yeah, you can't prove it, so it's, for me, it's like, well, it seems plausible that the American military would have been doing stuff like that just after the Second World War, for the Cold War, and they would have. Well, even if it was an alien, so what? Like, then you have to start asking questions like, all right, if you look at the universe as we know it, and you look at the vastness of the universe and the massive amount of area there is, and then you start looking at potential galaxies that may harbor life, well, you're talking such massive long distances that it would take just use, if we was using just what humans have now, we're talking like hundreds of thousands of years for a craft to get across from one galaxy to another. And it's like, the chances of, even if there is life out in the universe, the chances of that life being able to come and find us is very, very, very minute, So even then, if you still want to believe the conspiracy, well, even the added evidence of how big that we understand the universe to be now kind of takes away the whole fact that aliens would actually come and visit. Or they may already have been, but you're not going to know, and who cares?
Exactly. It's not like it's public news. It's not like they live among us and we all know about it.
Well, they may live among us. We may be aliens, for all we know. That came.
You're meant to be a lizard.
Yeah, I'm.
Very good lizard face.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, any last words for the conspiracy? Conspiracy, should we believe them?
Keep to an open mind, because there has been cases where some conspiracies have been true. So you don't want to be like, no, all conspiracies are bad. But examine it. Have a rational mind about it. Think about why would you, does it impact your life? And, why are you so worried about this?
I'd be more pointing people towards the characteristics of people who believe in conspiracy theories. The suspicious, untrusting, eccentric, needing to feel special, tendency to regard the world as an inherently dangerous place. I'd be looking at those kind of traits and characteristics and saying, why are you like that in the first place?
Yeah.
And that's already going to make you want to gravitate towards conspiracy theories. So if you need to be able to be self-aware and say, do you know what, I am pretty suspicious, I am pretty untrusting and eccentric, I need to realize that I'm going to be easily gravitating towards all these kind of situations. Even before start trying to be open-minded and stuff like that. But that's just my 2 cents. All right,
Anyway.
dude. It's been a pleasure, good fun as always, and this one was short, sharp, and to the point, and not much crap was spoken.
Crap
Right.
was down to a minimum.
I love minimal crap.
Right, laters, potatoes.
Peace.